Hello and welcome to Conversations on Europe, Teachable Moments. This is a program brought to you today by the European Studies Center at the University of Pittsburgh. My name is JJ Spoon and I'm the center's director, and I'm here today with Dr. Gemma Merolda, who is a professor of political science at the University of Pittsburgh, and we're going to be spending some time talking about Italy's recent elections, which happened last March. So welcome, Gemma. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
I wanted to start out perhaps with just a bit of background on these elections.
Well, first let's talk about Italy as a very important member of the European Union. And since 1946, it has been a republic, and we are now in the Second Republic since 1992. It is a very complex system and confusing, primarily because it's a multi-party system, and also because since 1992, the end of the Cold War, we really see a shift into the major parties. There was an actual collapse of the center. So Italy has a parliamentary system. It has a president, and it has a bicameral parliament, and obviously the judiciary. And who runs the government is the prime minister, or as is formally known, the Presidente del Consiglio dei Ministri, president of the Council of Ministers, which sometimes confuses people, so we just call him prime minister. The president in Italy, unlike the United States system, is really a ceremonial role, and really only names the prime minister after general elections. Who runs the government? As I said, it's the Council of Ministers, headed by the prime minister. So as a system, the parliament has two houses, the Camera dei Deputati, the lower house, and the upper house, the Senate, the Senato. They have equal power, and bills have to be approved by both houses. We have about 630 seats in the lower house and 315 seats in the Senate. In the Senate, you can stand if you're at least 40 years old as an Italian citizen. In the lower house, the Camera, 25 and up to be eligible to have a seat. It is a system that ever since the post-war era has had many, many parties. We count today, I think, 17, but we've also known the system to have over 20 parties. Obviously, in the post-war era, up until 1992, the two major poles were the Christian Democrats and the Communist parties. But that came all to an end in 1992 following a major corruption investigation called Tangentopoli. And so the parties had to reorganize. The Communist Party and the center-left reorganized altogether. The Communist Party basically is inexistent today, whereas the center-right has come into its own with the advent of the Berlusconi era, Silvio Berlusconi representing the new face in 1994 of sort of a populist movement in 1994, which then is picked up today in a different way by the Movimento 5 Stelle, who is truly a anti-establishment movement. So we go into the March election after the end of the Berlusconi era in 2011 due to the capital markets basically forcing Berlusconi out. It's followed by a technocratic government of Mario Monti, and then the advent of Matteo Renzi with the Partito della Democrazia in 2014. He was actually the first populist, but once in government, he succumbed to the forces of politics and a parliamentary system in Europe, and frankly became very much a divisive figure. Top-down leadership, very arrogant in its own style, and has been somewhat successful, but along the way not enough to take Italy out of sort of this gradual decline that has been going on since the Eurozone crisis of 2008, 2010.
So it sounds very much that elections in Italy are very different than obviously what we're used to in the U.S., both from clearly the perspective of having so many different parties,
yes,
but also the fact that voters are voting in two different ways, right? They're voting, as you say, the first past the post, which is very familiar to us,
yes,
where you're voting for a single candidate, whoever gets past the post
right.
first wins, and then voting for a party list,
right.
which is very different than what we're used to voting in the U.S.
Right. I just wanted to say that when looking at the electoral system in Italy, this was the first election with the new law that entered into force, was signed into force in 2017 and named Rosatello, named by the after the Camera dei Deputati membro Ettore Rosato. And it's a first for Italy, and it's significant to understand what's going on right now with the results. By this law, the new system basically says that citizens can have two votes. They have a vote for the Senate and a vote for the Camera dei Deputati. But also the system is different. So the results are gathered via first past the post, which is the new element in Italian politics, and the proportional representation via party list. So when Italians go to the polls, and they went to the polls in March under this new law, they voted for the parties. Now, with the two votes, they can actually vote different parties for the Senate that they have for the lower house. So it's an interesting change. The major change that is known is that in the past, a party or a coalition of parties would have to ensure 40%. So any party or combination of parties that had 40% of the votes would automatically have the majority in government. That is abolished. No more this automatic majority given to the parties. So now where we are is Italians are forced, and Italian politicians are forced to seek coalitions.
Well, thank you. This has been really, really enlightening. I think you've really done a wonderful job at trying to help us to understand the complexities of the Italian system and all of the parties, which for an American audience is very complex and intricate and much more perhaps chaotic than our own system. And so thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.